All right, here we go. Next drive. Next drive, start out shotgun formation. Um, it really looks like you see four down linemen. You have three receivers to the left and running back lined up to the left. Um, you have one receiver down at the bottom of the right. Looks like a one high safety look. Safety's rolled down. That's the look that you're getting. First play, next drive. Handoff, cool. Jesus Christ. All right. So Trent Brown, for context in this situation, actually got hurt. He actually had something up with his hamstring or his quad. Hopefully, it would explain the lazy technique, but that's not the first time he's ever done that. So you have in right tackle, you have Sam Young, backup right tackle, and we're about to watch out maybe why he is the backup. And it's not because Trent Brown's that good. All right, so run play, just a handoff. Looks like a zone right. So Sam Young, what he does, he comes off the ball. He does gain ground. Now it looks like so for zone blocking, depending on who you're talking to, some will say give ground, but others say you step and whoever shows up is your man. So in this case, he is functionally doing his job. All right. Now I don't personally like his technique, and the reason is because he's already too high. He is his knees are kind of not very bent. He's kind of stiff. He's bending more at the waist, and his hands are down by his hands are down at his side. That's not a very ideal position to be in. You really want your hands like kind of ready to strike and engage, um, which he does eventually get his hands inside to engage. And now, one thing he does, he doesn't loop his hands. His elbows are flared, which means his thumbs are up. At least that's my assessment of it. His base is really, really wide. His head's a little too involved, and but he does have inside leverage, and he's trying to push this dude out. So, for all intents and purposes, he does his job until the defensive end fights back, and yeah, he fights back. Definitely doesn't make the play. Not the greatest block in the world, but the biggest key word is doing. He just does his job. But I wouldn't. Certainly not a plus. He does try to drive his feet when he does get engaged, as you can see. I'll try to put it in play. Like he does try to drive his feet, so you give him credit for effort there. Different coaching techniques I've seen will tell you get your head in, like put the screws of your helmet, even though helmets don't really have screws in the top anymore. At least like modern Riddell Speed Flex helmets don't. And I don't think the shut ones do either. But you try to get them like on the shoulder pads and just drive block. Ideally, that's what you want to do. Keyword, if ifs and buts are candy and nuts, however that goes. All right. Right guard. Zone block technique, zone step, gives ground initially, but he does get off the ball pretty well. And he does get a good piece, kind of loops his hands, but he is pushing this technique across his face, or this three technique across. All right, now it looks like three technique decided to get off the ball a little bit late. In my opinion, his head is on the wrong side, and if he was really trying to drive him to the right to set up that cutback lane, because it looks like the cutback lane should be really inside, somewhere off the center's block. Basically, whatever the center does is going to determine where Josh Jacobs is going to cut back inside, right? Because if you can see Josh Jacobs, if you can see his eyes, he's looking at the guards block and he's looking at the center. All right, so that's kind of the alleyway in which he's trying to block. So with that in mind, Gabe Jackson does eventually get on the right side. And I think that's just because of the way, because the three technique realizes he got beat across his face, so he was like, "Oh snap! I need to maintain my gap." That's what it looks like to me. But then he realizes, "Oh wait, I'm getting pushed out of the play," and Gabe Jackson still continues to fight. That's how that works. Otherwise, decent job by Gabe Jackson overall. Um, could have and should have come out a lot lower. Better hands, better head placement. But if he gets off the ball late, that's his own fault. And he's zone stepping, so he's literally doing his job. But that right there, yeah, that loop can't do that. I mean, you shouldn't do that. Rodney Hudson just works, does exactly what he's supposed to do. 3 technique goes. He's working straight up to linebacker, gets a good piece of him. Um, now the only thing, now the biggest, now the where I do kind of give exemption or at least a little bit more forgiveness on blocks. First level blocks and first level technique is really like a good chunk of the battle. But once you start working up to second and third level where you're like blocking people who are in open space, it's a lot damn harder to really even get on the blocks, let alone stay on the blocks. So your technique at that point is somewhat forgiven, at least in my eyes, but there's a limit with all of it. Like you can't just come in willy-nilly and just try to hit the guy and do nothing. So when he does come in a bit high, and he does get his head on the right side. His hips are on the right side. I mean, his body position is where he needs to be. Now, I would have, and he does end up like pushing him where he needs to go. So otherwise, front side, this is more or less about as good as a look as Josh Jacobs is going to get as far as a front side zone run is going to go. Okay, now let's talk about good old man Richie. Old man Richie anticipates a snap. I mean, savvy veteran. That's what you got to do when you're kind of old. Um, he tries to take away the inside. He's got a 1 technique zone block. Now, what should really happen at this point, and it is not an easy thing to do, he needs to try to push more vertical at this point. He's got leverage. He's zone block. The play is coming inside of him. So he really needs to just push this 1 technique north and south as much as he can. He's not going to get this linebacker. That's just not going to happen. That's not his job at that point. But what he needs to do is really, really, really try to push north, really try to push vertical, because that is going to open up the running lane. But instead, he ends up getting beat. Like, he actually has leverage, and not only does he gets beat backwards. This is a yikes position to be in as a lineman. This is not cash money. This will not pay the bills. Goddamn. And and the 1 technique has a more or less a free shot at what should have been a Pro Bowl running back, and a play that should have been able to at least get some good yardage ends up not. All right. I do hold Richie Incognito to blame for that. His technique initially just didn't really set him up to win. Came off too high. Came off quick, but came off too high. Didn't really push north. And if he was going to try to push him across if he tries to cross your face, what you should do is just help him on the way, just commit to it. And his lack of commitment, lack of devotion, exposed him. Now, Colton Miller, he's trying to work to Tahir Whitehead in this case, the backside linebacker. Now, that's not like what he should do is try to like get a piece of this down lineman. You never pass color up, and he also understands that he needs to try to push this play vertical, but there's not a lot that he could do at this point. So he needs to try to like push the linebacker across his face. That's really on Richie for not really getting a good block on him in the first place. For really having leverage in the first place. His hand is on his outside, and Colton Miller, trying to be a decent teammate, also kind of played him a little bit too. He played him in the sense that Richie didn't do a good job trying to get vertical and being square. So when Colton came down, he basically down blocked him and knocked him off of his block and basically made a bad problem worse. Can you blame Colton Miller? Yes. Yeah. But you really need to hold the blame on the left guard in this one. Now, when he tries to block Tahir Whitehead, he's already in the play. Like, what should happen is Colton Miller head on that 5 right there, and he's just sending them to the numbers. That's what should happen. And I'm not saying if that was blocked correctly, if Richie Incognito was square, this play would have been more or less out the gate. Like, it should have been maybe this backside defensive end had a chance, but with as much explosion as any NFL tailback, especially this one, has, he would have been able to work all the way up, and it'd have been one-on-one with the safety. It'd have been worth seeing, but here we are. It is what it is. Next play, shotgun formation, 4 down linemen. This one's a stand-up edge rusher. Looks like a nickel look in this case. You have a linebacker here, lined up over the tight end. You have 2 high look. Looks like man. I mean, that's just what I can see. And it's a run play. Solid run. Good stuff. All right, so looking at it from this angle. All right, so you saw the wide angle of that. So really, there's a lot of real estate to the right side of this field. So this play has a real good chance of busting open if done correctly. Now, 4 down linemen, we already talked about. 1 linebacker, 2 linebacker. Number 21 right here is a nickel corner because they also have an actual corner, as you can see here at the bottom of the screen. So you have 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 DBs. All right. And this is a pretty normal look in the NFL. This isn't unheard of, but given the context, it does kind of make sense why they would come out with this personnel grouping. All right. So they're kind of geared for pass. This is what it looks like. So you have a 1 technique who's kind of a more of a head up 2 technique. He's shaded, so different coaches will tell you different things. I've had some coaches in some schemes will call him a gap player if you're not really sure if he's a 2 or a 3 or if he's a 0 or a 1. Like others will say, no, you need to identify him as a specific technique. There are no such thing as gap players. But it just depends on the offense and the way the schemes are blocked. All right, this guy is a wide edge rusher. Like he's a no cap edge rusher. He's also a no cap edge rusher. Now his inside foot is forward. To me, this looks like an actual rush because most people are right-handed, and usually the jump foot is the same side as the dominant side, but I've seen some situations where they'll tell you if you're going to drop into coverage, you want to put your dominant, like your jump foot forward so you can kick, backpedal quicker. That's just what I've seen, what I've heard of. I never really played that position, so I wouldn't know. Yeah. So as this play develops, good old Sam Young getting a good piece of that 9 technique or that wide rusher. He just steps out and meets him. Now this is a decent job by Sam Young. On one end, he could really be wildly aggressive and just try to send him to the sideline. On the other end, just recognizing if he looks like he's here for a pass, then there's no point in. He looks like he's here for pass. If he's here for a pass rush, he is not trying to run inside. So all he needs to do is just maintain inside leverage and just help him on his way. And that's all he does. Maintain inside leverage. The dude is clearly running upfield. There's no point in really trying to do the most. Good technique. It doesn't matter what your technique really is at that point. He's not trying to make the play. All right. Right guard. Comes off the ball. Nobody's to his inside gap. So it really should be right guard and center working up for middle linebacker here. He steps right. He knows nobody's there, so he's going to try to work in north-south. He sees the linebacker is deep. So what he's going to do, or what he should do, stay square, get a good piece of this down lineman, and just try to send him over to the center and work up for the linebacker. And that should get a good alleyway for the running back. And sure enough, that's kind of how that works out. Now, the other hard part about blocking second level that they don't really tell you, that's not really advertised, you really have to get good angles. Because the reality is these people, if you're one of these guys, are a whole different athletic universe compared to you. All right. Not universe, but they do different things. All right. And as the NFL evolves and changes, these positions, like the full-time linebackers, are becoming faster. So pursuit angles and everything like that really, really matter more. So, and it's hard to react on the run too. Um, so to understanding where the play is going, you kind of have to prioritize what's more important. So what's more important in this case is getting a good piece of this guy and making sure your center has a good piece of him and you can send him over. That's way more important than trying to get to this guy. All right. But once you could determine that he is already there, now at this point, what Gabe Jackson should do is try to fade out a little bit. Keyword try. But and I understand why he didn't shoot out this way, because that's hesitation, I mean, is enough. And it's literally just a split second difference between getting a good block and maintain leverage and losing it altogether. And like this happens within literal seconds. So it is what it is. Now, receiver here tries to come in on the safety. The key word in this one is try. Now I'll give the dude credit. He did come in choosing violence. That was funny, but I mean, give him all the credit in the world. He came in really trying to like make a statement. Now, if this was blocked really the right way, now at this point it's a bit of an ask because of how downhill he has to run. You're asking him essentially to really change his entire like momentum and change back this direction. I'm not saying it's not physically possible. I am saying it is physically hard as hell to do. So, and he was better off honestly just doing exactly what he did, because eventually the stand-up defensive end right here ended up being there anyway. So he got what he could on this play. It was a decent game. All right. Now center. Now the D tackle got stood up, and the center kind of got in a very awkward position just because of the way the D tackle played it. Gabe Jackson did the best he could. He did send him across, but my man's left arm was wrapped around him, which set him up in a very unadvantageous. This isn't good. If he was square and he had his elbows inside, he'd have been able to like maintain control. And if this interior lineman decided to like come this way, he'd have been able to like just help him on his way. And it ended up being otherwise inconsequential because he was able to still like get good leverage on him. But this isn't ideal. You don't want this situation where this dude can reach and grab him, because I have witnessed multiple times really good defensive linemen reach past people. Chester McLaughlin, Fletcher Cox, John Randall, Aaron Donald, J.J. Watt in his prime, Richard Seymour. I can go down the list of great defensive linemen who will take advantage of this exact situation. All right. Now, he's not bad, but he ain't that damn good. Just telling the truth. All right. But that wasn't a great job by Rodney Hudson on that one. Just my opinion. Left guard. Honestly, old man Richie did a pretty good job on this one. Without trying to do too much, because he knows he's backside on this play. It's a zone run to the right. Rather than sit there and try to take away this inside and try to do whatever, really, he should be looking for any blitzes coming this way. No blitzes are coming this way. The linebacker who would have been over here is manned up over Jason Witten. And they're running like a bubble screen RPO type thing over here to try to draw the defense off. So it ended up just being a give. So Richie Incognito, recognizing that this linebacker is not blitzing, worked out perfect. So he just maintained leverage on this 3 technique and was working with the tackle. Decent job. Could he have come in lower? It's nice to want things, but for all intents and purposes, he is resetting the line of scrimmage. He is moving him forward, and all you can do is move him forward to give this guy as much like room to make the decisions as he needs to as possible. This wasn't very cash money, but it ended up working out. This guy recognizing this is a play, which is why it's kind of funny the receiver came in expecting violence to on this play. It worked out great. Colton Miller. On this one, he did step inside, zone step, and was really trying to square this guy up and try to push him forward. That's a good double team. That's a pretty solid job. They just completely abandoned this dude, and given the way the play was supposed to go, that wasn't a bad move. There wasn't like anybody who's backside linebacker wise who were really going to do anything. Um, Now it'd have been nice if Mans would have stayed on his feet because he did recognize that this guy was kind of coming in late. And these are the thing about zone plays and the thing about zone runs of any sort. It is always the backside. You have to look over your backside shoulder, and that is the one that will really kind of tell the story of whether or not you're going to be successful on said play. And if you don't look over your backside shoulder, um, you're going to set yourself up for failure. So you always got to look over your backside shoulder because these are the guys who usually make the plays. When these blocks get made, a lot of times that's what really makes a difference on the play, not just the great runs and the great athletes who do it. All right, pretty decent play overall. There were some issues, but just the way it goes. Next play, 3rd and 2. All right, looks like a 2 tight end formation, fullback in. About to play some Raider football. Oh, Jesus. Good throw. Decent catch. Solid gain to Darren Waller the Great. That's dope. All right. So, if you ever watch Ray Lewis explain defense, and I encourage anybody, if they can find like a clip or whatever on YouTube of him explaining defense, and he was explaining why Houston wasn't doing well at the time. This is like a couple years ago. But he basically explained that one of the biggest problems with any defense is communication. Same thing on offense, all right? So you can tell and you can see that there is some communication issues, all right? So here you have a C-gap defender. Sorry, you have, C-gap defender. You have a A-gap defender. Nobody's lined up over the B-gap defender, but the de facto B-gap defender is this backside linebacker here. You have frontside A-gap defender is Tahir Whitehead, but you also have this guy not really sure what he's doing either. So, and then you have the 3 technique who's a B-gap defender. You have this guy who's a C-gap defender. And the safety right here, lined up on the perimeter, is the edge defender. All right? Tahir Whitehead should move over. He's trying to communicate that he should move over. All right? But they're bunched up together. Now, this is a pretty good opportunity to take advantage of, but it looks like somebody's blitzing. Sure enough, somebody's blitzing. All right. So, well, I don't know. I wouldn't say they're blitzing, but they were very committed to what they were trying to do. So, on this play action, Sam Young steps inside, steps way too high. Like he's way too high. Dude has a drug problem. Good Lord above. His stance is kind of stiff. His feet are kind of wide for my liking. If you're gonna step inside on a run block like this or selling the run, you need to really sell this and you block a 3 technique. And his head's too high. He's on the wrong side. He's not really trying to take away the inside. Like I know you're ultimately pass blocking, but if this was a run block, he'd have a problem. All right. He ends up resetting his hands. Ends up maintaining decent leverage. Still standing straight up because the 3 technique is lazy. So ends up being okay. The front side edge player. Gets cut blocked by good old tailback. That's what's up. The safety who looked like he would have blitzed decided not to because the fullback ran right into him. That's also what's up. Gabe Jackson. He steps inside, just general rule, I guess. But immediately recognizes no blitz or pressure is coming from his inside. Immediately has to help and camp out back here. Gives the hand to God. Kind of saves Sam Young here. I mean, it'd be nice if he got a little bit more involved, but, it's nice to want things. Center, Rodney Hudson. He does sell the run pretty well. ends up blocking pretty well. I mean, Sell's run is about as good as you can get. My opinion is a little high. Not a lot of bend at the knee. Um, Leaning a little bit too much for my liking, but him and the guard end up working pretty well together. He ends up taking over this block completely. So guard is just looking for work, and he finds it over back here with good old Colton Miller. And Colton Miller, yep, here we go. Colton Miller. He steps out to kick out. I mean, the defensive end doesn't really know what he's going to do, and it's a pretty moot point. He wasn't going to make the play. I guess good play. High five. That was me high-fiving myself. All right, next play. Yeah, 4 down. Ooh. Got 4 down linemen. Looks like you have a potential nickel set. We'll see how this plays out. Oh, blitz. And Darren Waller, the great, catches it. Next play. All right. So this looks a wee bit suspicious. Looks a wee bit suspicious. If I had to suspect anything, might be a blitz. Something's up because he played tight. Now he's playing kind of loose. He's kind of here. And sure enough, oh no, he blitzes. Oh my goodness. Who would have thought? Man. So, I mean, at the end of the day, like this is you would want to slide the protection left, so Colton Miller gets the most outside guy. Rich Incognito gets this guy. Center works back to this guy. Different teams call it different ways. Fan, Larry, or some L word. And everybody just blocks normal front side, and it just ends up being man-to-man across the board. Theoretically, it's how you would want to do it, but you do what you got to do. Get it how you live. All right, so just looking at Sam Young. Sam Young, stiff as hell. Doing that goofy thing, trying to kick, trying to do the most. Dear Lord. Probably can't dance for shit. Might be able to two-step. All right. He does kind of place his hands. He's bending at his waist, and he's throwing his hands at the dude. Now, this is not a good position to be in as a lineman because he doesn't because if this dude arbitrarily decided just to run straight through him, he'd fall on his ass because he doesn't have any weight under him. His feet are together, all right? He ends up recovering. Again, that's nice, but, you don't just place your hands. You really attack because you try to neutralize the rush, all right? So I don't necessarily agree with it, but again, you do what you got to do. So he loops his hands, and he does open up the gate a little too much. Like, there's a logical now, if he understood like where the launch point was, and he understood quarterback was going to be throwing it from here, and it was going to be like a relatively quick route, I can see maybe you can get away with it, but you really want to be a little bit more square for a little bit longer than he was on that play at the end of the day. Now, right guard, Gabe Jackson. He steps inside because he had a one technique. Steps inside. Dude decides to step outside. All right, well, that was moving a little too much for my liking. You don't really want to do a whole lot of extra movement on pass pro if you don't have to. He does get his hands inside. He does eventually get his base under him. He gives up a little bit more ground than he probably should have, but it ends up being okay. Again, the play looks like it developed pretty quickly, so c'est la vie. Center moves back to the left to the 3 technique. And now this is a solid pass pro by the center because he's just not trying to do too much. He knows at the end of the day, this 3 technique is going to have to answer to him. So either he's going to run through him or try to run inside of him. So he's just ready for him. Now this is where it's not so good because he tries to swim. Now this is a big problem with swimming, with the swim move. A lot of times people will try to swim and they'll keep that hand way up there. Now, any really savvy offensive lineman would ball up their fist and sauce your ribs up real quick. Maybe punch you in the kidney. I'm not saying I cannot confirm or deny if I've done that. I'm gonna tell you right now, that's exactly where my head would be in that situation because it's just too easy. But when he does come down with that swim move, he does come across his face, which is also kind of a dickhead move. But then again, you expose your ribs and your kidneys, and if you pee blood in the morning, that's not my problem to deal with. Now, the other thing I don't really like is that he's leaning. And he's got his weight forward. That's not a very ideal position to be in. But again, this is one thing I've definitely noticed with these guys right here is that if they don't really make it off of their initial rush, they just kind of like hang out and spy and try to do the JJ Watt thing, and they're like great value JJ Watt. They're not genuine name brand JJ Watt. So it's funny, but it's kind of it's just lazy to me is what it comes off as. My opinion, I'm entitled to it. All right, dude's blitzing. So Renshi Cognito tries to do the least because he's old. So he just lets the 5 come to him. Play develops quickly. There's no point in doing a whole lot of movement. I mean, I guess it's for all intents and purposes, pass pro technique, not bad. I would like his face to not get so involved. I'd like him to bend more at the knee, not the hip. He's leaning a little far forward. Set yourself up for a push-pull. Does eventually extend on the guy and pushes him off of him, but that's kind of when the play was no longer relevant on the play. Colton Miller doing the hand to God deal. Kick step could be better, but at least he's not stepping backwards with this foot. Thank Christ, Jesus Lord. And this dude is just coming off the edge. Now this is another thing that offensive linemen, you might see them do, is they'll put their head down and just kind of push. So what he's really trying to do is put his hand on that inside hip and just push him this direction. Now, that's not the cleanest pocket in the world because Gabe Jackson is getting walked back a bit. But it's pretty decent, all things considered. And that's the only reason why he puts his head down there. He does have his head on the wrong side. He is bending at the waist, not at the knee. And he did eventually knock him off of his rush and got in front of him, maintain leverage. Take the wins when you get them. Four-man front. Looks like cover one high safety. Safety walked up. There's a safety right there. There's a corner, safety. Damn. All right, let's see the end zone view. Ooh-wee. 3rd and short, or 3rd and 1. All right, 4 down linemen. This is a 2 linebacker set. That is not a linebacker. I mean, he's a linebacker for all intents and purposes. He's going to be a linebacker on this play. Well, sorry. This dude's going to be a linebacker on this play, but there's only 2 linebackers here. This is nickel personnel still. All right. So there's going to be a regular just run the handoff to the right. Let's look at good old Sam Young. Better yet, let's look at the receivers on this one and see how their blocks kind of playing out. Hunter Renfrow doesn't get leverage. Dear Lord. Rookie receiver Edwards kind of confused. Not sure how to find employment. That's what's up. Good old Sam Young. God damn it. What the? Oh, okay, dude. All right. Goddamn. All right. Let's look at this, yo. So my man, he gives up ground on his first step. Now the theory, I can see the logic of you're trying to maintain inside leverage. Got it, cool. Hands are coming way from down south. God, Jesus Christ. He ends up bear hugging this dude, and his footing is off, and he ends up getting his footing is off, and he kind of trips. And he ends up getting a pancake, but it really isn't a pancake because they both kind of suck. That's the truth. They both suck. That is not because either one of that is not because this right tackle is good. That that edge player, he he lost his footing because he just stepped weird, he committed weird. The damn tackle just didn't move and as stiff as a freaking board. Dear God, what the what the and you're just gonna roll over thinking you're an athlete. Dear Lord, this is. And here he is looking confused. Look at this motherfucker. Look at this dude. All right. Now, Gabe Jackson, right guard. Steps over. Well, frontside defensive end is going down to the shadow realm, sending himself to the shadow realm, and he's going to work up to the frontside linebacker. Solid move. Again, this is where angles and everything kind of come into play. You want to maintain leverage on this shoulder instead of this shoulder, and Gabe Jackson kind of gets out leveraged a little bit because of the way the linebacker commits. Now, his angle, again, he is trying to do the right thing because he doesn't want to get beat across his face necessarily because he wants to maintain control. But you don't want to get beat this way because that's where the play is running. You want to just get your head here and send them on your terms, not the other way around. And because he loops his hands and he gets his hips in a weird spot, fortunately, he's just physically bigger and stronger than this linebacker, so he kind of gets away with one until he doesn't because he just doesn't really get a good position on him to begin with, and the linebacker fights it off enough just to disrupt the play. So overall, not good. Pro Bowl center Rodney Hudson, immediately coming off the ball like a bat out of hell. I understand why he did what he did. I don't like that technique. Again, I understand why he did what he did because he does not want to. He needs to get leverage and try to move this dude as much as he can. If he had to pick one, whether it was leverage or movement, he's going to pick leverage. So that makes sense. It's just kind of hard, and he ends up kind of getting walked back into play. And as we have some acrobatics going on the bottom of the damn, good Lord. We've got some acrobatics going on. Good old running back is doing the best he can with what he can, which he can't. So overall, I would say Rodney Hudson did a pretty decent job because he still managed to maintain leverage. Running back was still able to get to second level. Cool. Now let's look at old man Richie. Steps, gives a hand to God for his tackle. And now he does get a good fit as far as position goes. It's not a good fit because you're standing straight up with a linebacker and your head's too like that's not ideal. You want to get lower so you can push him more from the center of gravity and push him that way. All right. So if you can push him, if he can really get some movement and send him to the numbers, if the guard can get some movement, send him to the numbers, and if this receiver can find some damn employment, if Hunter Renfro can get leverage, and you don't have acrobatic, tumbling, wrestling, stiff as a board right tackle, you might have a play here. But here we are. Go Raiders. So instead, Tahir Whitehead proves that he is just a superior athlete and superior human. And Richie is kind of old. And he pulls off of this block, which was obviously a hold. And Tahir Whitehead makes the play. I mean, just is what it is, dude. Like, I get blocking second level is not easy. I really do understand that. However, there's limits with everything. Like, what you lack in speed, you have to make up for timing and technique. And this one lacked both. That's just the truth. And let's talk about this cut block. All right. Now, I've seen some cut blocks in my life. This was not... Yo, what the... Yo, my dude, my guy, my mans. What are you doing, bro? What the hell? I mean... It's like he wanted a cut block, but he didn't. Because, again, given where the play was going, theoretically speaking, he actually did it. As far as effectiveness, he was effective. As far as good goes, this was not it. Jesus Christ. My dude. What the hell? All right. So, like, his dudes weren't the reason this play got blown up. All right. And while we're at it, let's go ahead and talk about some Darren Waller. My man's. I mean, all he did was just get in his way, and then he got muscled. 97. Got slapped in the face. But fortunately, Colton Miller kind of got in everybody's way, so it kind of bailed him out. And, good old Henry Ruggs. Let's see what that speed demon can do. Yep, speed will get you everything but good blocking technique. Jesus Christ. Oof. All right.